And joining us right now on the telephone, a man who has written a very interesting, inspirational book. He's also a comedian, and it all kind of ties together with overcoming an illness to go on the David Letterman show. It's called Dying to Do Letterman, turning someday into today. We're joined by comedian Steve Mazan today from California. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to have a chance to talk to you. Once I got the blurb from the publicist, I wanted to have you on. Always been a fan of you folks who do the stand-up comedy, and of course Letterman as well. And this really is an inspirational book as well. I happened to see the stand-up, I guess the first one that you did on Letterman on YouTube. A great moment for you, and a great routine. That must have been obviously that's what your goal was, but to culminate that's a great story.
Yeah, well, listen, it was always my dream to perform on Letterman. I mean, that's kind of the reason I got into stand-up comedy was to do that. But I was making a living at it in 2005, and that's when I got diagnosed with cancer and told, worst case scenario, I only have 5 years to live. So it was kind of time to stop waiting on that dream and time to make it happen. So yeah, that's kind of what the book goes about. And yeah, that was a big moment when I finally made it happen.
I just reading the story about obviously when anybody gets that kind of diagnosis, it got to hit you like a ton of bricks falling on your head, and then being a comedian itself, I mean, it's got to be the hardest art form to make a living in, to develop a routine and all that, to have all that happen to you at once, and then also trying to fulfill a goal of your show business goal and to get well. I mean, that's a lot to handle.
Yeah, I think it definitely was a big plate to handle, and I was going through all that, all the the initial treatments and surgeries and stuff like that to deal with some of the cancer that I could, and but it was one of those things that the routine kind of saved me. At some point, you still got to pay the bills, and life goes on, at least for whatever time I was going to have left, and so yeah, it kind of saved me as well to give myself a goal and say, okay, I'm the worst case scenario guy, but if I really only have 5 years, like you're saying, how do I want to spend that? So it was nice to set a goal and say, okay, I'm gonna, you see in the book, I gave myself a year to get on the show, and it didn't happen in a year, but it gave me something to kind of get back out and start working on, and not let the cancer kind of take over, kind of, turn the tables on it, and make it about something else rather than the cancer.
I was kind of surprised how much or how difficult it is now when you get on the show, but once they say, okay, we're going to listen to you, the producer, the comedy producer, how much they work with you to get that routine almost down to letter perfect before they let you on. I guess you had to do it several times in local clubs even after they booked you on the show, right? Just to kind of get it down to the minute, right?
You're exactly right. Yeah, it really is a process, and me even coming with the goal of getting on in a year. That looking back now, that was kind of ridiculous. It just takes so much prep and everything to get on the show, and then as you see in the book, like you're saying, once you're booked, so many things can happen that can change the booking or the date or end the booking altogether. But even once you're there in New York for the taping, they still have you go out and practice the set a couple times and, refine it. And, again, it's not just about being funny, it's about being funny and perfect for that show. So there's a lot of, editing and, re-editing and just making sure it's working. And, but the booker of the show knows what he's doing, so, they do everything to make sure you're going to have a successful set on the show. So,
Eddie Brill is the guy he's been there for years. He's kind of the comedy guy. I guess Johnny Carson had a guy, I think his name was McCauley, if I'm not mistaken, that did the same thing. He kind of scouted comedians and helped them with their set. But Eddie, I guess, gave you some tips, like change a word here, change a word there in the clubs in New York to kind of nail it, even make it more refined, right? The routine he did.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they just refine it. And again, he's seen every comedian who's been on the show, since he's been there, so he kind of knows. Okay, this is, this is going to work, this isn't going to work, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's just tightening it up. And, there are a couple things I thought, okay, he knows what he's talking about here. But there are a couple, things I was like, well, I don't think that's going to work or this. And so, you work together with them. And that was one of the nice things that, in the end, it really helps because it makes it, the best set possible then when you get on the show. He really knows what's going to wow a crowd. So yeah, it was great. And it's like having a hitting coach or something right before you step up to the plate.
And I won't give it away, but I mean, you do a whole routine on a hotel and a key and all that. It's a great routine, and it's kind of a throwback to the older style. I wouldn't say older style, but maybe style of the 60s and 50s, where you have like one routine, continuous theme throughout it. You don't see that as much anymore. Usually it's joke, but that must have been difficult to kind of put this together. It's like a whole big story you tell.
Yeah, listen, it was my dream to be on the show, and I was willing to do, it takes me, a number of years and a number of submissions of different jokes and material to get on. And when I finally got on, it was just like you're saying, like one long topic, that I kind of cover in the 5 minutes I'm done. And there had only been a couple other big name comedians that I had seen on the show. I was a big fan of the show, obviously, and had seen all the comedians that have been on. And there have only been a couple that kind of tackled just one topic. And, so I was, of course, happy that they were telling me I could be on, but I did feel a little pressure to be, extra funny on that topic because, if it's not working, there's nowhere else to go. You can't switch topics or go to different jokes or anything like that. Your whole 5 minutes is on one specific, subject. And so luckily it worked out. And, it was kind of fun now looking back to be in that kind of small group of people who tackle it that way. But yeah, it's not the general way they do things. So it was, kind of neat looking back, but very nerve-wracking when they said that was the joke they wanted me to do on the show.
I was going to say, well, what's it like that day of the taping once you say, you're going to be on tonight's show? Usually the comedians on Letterman is kind of the next to last segment on the show, so you have to kind of sift through the interviews, don't you? I think you talk about that in the book as well. That's got to be a little nerve-wracking.
No, it was very nerve-wracking. There's always the chance you might get bumped. I had heard stories from, all these the other comics that I talked to, Ray Romano, Jimmy Gaffigan, Kevin Nealon, all these techniques that have been on the show, about them getting bumped, because, something goes wrong, a band goes wrong, they get another guest at the last second who's very topical, or, that day, Neil Patrick Harris, Jimmy Hauser, was the first guest, and he was being really funny, and so they ended up giving him an extra segment, and I really thought there was a good chance I was going to be bumped. I heard stories of people have the microphone in their hand, waiting to walk out onto the stage and having the microphone taken and saying, "Oh, you're going to be rescheduled." So definitely nerve-wracking, just waiting to see if you're even going to go out there, let alone, now I am going to go out and I just have one topic. Is it going to go well? All the normal things of performing, and on top of that, just wondering if you're even going to get out there. So it's definitely a nerve-wracking day, but for whatever reason that day, I felt extra calm. And I get nervous when I go out just to practice my set at a comedy club for half a dozen people on an off night when I'm just trying to work things out. But for whatever that reason was that day, I just had a nice calmness. I think it was the culmination of everything it took to get there. I kind of felt like, okay, look, you've put in all the work and done everything you can, and you won already just by getting here, and now just go out and wow them. And that Sullivan Theater, that's where the Beatles and have played, all that stuff. So I should have been more nervous than I was, but for whatever reason, I felt that I calmness that day, and I think it came across in the set. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, do you actually do your act in a rehearsal on the stage, or the first time you do it on the stage, is that it for the taping?
There are a couple hours before the show. Well, not a couple hours, because that day they tape two shows. So in between the two shows, I get to go out on stage and they show you where you're going to stand and that kind of thing. And the cameraman kind of get a view like, okay, this is tall, so we're going to set the cameras at this side, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's usually a minute or two. But I actually asked Eddie Brill, the booker, I was like, I would love to. I would love to hang out a little longer, and just part of the thing is just feeling comfortable on that stage. And obviously, rather than that being the very first time I was there, I said, asked if I could hang out for about 10 minutes. So I ran the set just through in my head a couple times, then once aloud. Just really got comfortable in the space so that when I came back on the stage when they introduced me, I felt like, okay, I've been here before, I know this place. And I definitely took as much time as possible. He kept saying, "Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go?" And I just kept saying, do I have to? Do I have to go yet? Can I stay here? You know, then finally he's like, okay, they're going to let people in. We really have to go. But yeah, I took as much time as I could get on that stage beforehand.
Just from talking to many comedians over the years, Steve, obviously you want the audience to be a hot audience, and usually on television, they warm them up where they are pretty good. But I guess that's a concern, though, right? You want a good audience in the studio that night, because that can affect your performance, right?
Definitely, yeah. You never know. Listen, I've seen some great comedians. One of my favorite comedians, Brian Regan, who I talked about in the book.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen great comedians like him just have offset it, like you said, it's late in the show usually when they get to the comedian. They've done a lot of comedy, they've done a lot of bits, there have been other guests, so you never know how the audience is going to be by that time of the night. And so yeah, it's definitely a concern. And like I said right before me, Neil Patrick Harris was really having a great interview, and it was really funny. So you just don't know, that can either be great because the audience is with them, they're just ready for more laughs, but sometimes they're ready for the show to be over, or they're like, you're not a star, you're just a comedian that day, so they don't know you when you walk out on the stage. So you never know how it's going to go. And luckily for me that day, it went great, and they were still ready to laugh and he told more jokes. So very lucky that it worked out that way.
Yeah, it did. Just watching for the audience now listening, just go to YouTube. You can see the set that Steve did that night. And what was the aftermath? As soon as you get off the stage that night, does Dave come over to you afterward, or who comes over to you, or do you just kind of walk out and they don't say anything?
No. Luckily, you never meet Dave before the show. He's kind of a reclusive guy, so he's not kind of guy that comes over to the green room or the dressing room and says hi before the show. So, I put all my thought into, the performance itself, but the minute I said the final word of my set, and the band kicks in, then all of a sudden, that's actually the most nervous I got, is all of a sudden I was like, this is when I'm going to get to meet Dave. He's going to come over now. And it seemed like forever for him to walk over. I think if you see the right video on YouTube, you can kind of see the whole thing, but it seems like he takes forever to come up behind me, and so I was like, okay, just keep waving and smiling to the audience. And then eventually he comes up, and I've seen the show so many times, I really pay attention to what he says. Like, if he compliments the performer, or if he pushes off the compliment, like, if he says he likes it, or if he says, wow, the audience enjoyed you, But I really wanted to impress him and see what he said, so it was a big deal. He came up, and he said, Steve Mazan, great job. And then he's like, really funny, Steve. And, who was coming up next. And then he said one more time how funny I was. And, it was a big deal. And then, he went to commercial, and, he said some nice words once we were at commercial. And I remember seeing my name on the cue card, and he said, hey, can I have that cue card? So I was like, sure, you can take the cue card. Like, he wasn't going to keep it, so he didn't care. But then that's it. It's just a quick little, interaction with him. But it was a big deal and a great memory for me.
It's almost like his version of what Johnny used to do, wave you over to the panel to sit for a couple minutes. Him coming over and saying good job or something like that. That's the same kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, we can just see, kind of what he says or how he handles it, and how much interaction you have with him at that point. So that's exactly it. Yeah, that's the big part. Like I said, I tried to block that out as much as possible, and not think about it until I was done with my set, because I think that would have been the nervous part for me.
Sure. Well, it's really a fun book to read. I mean, you tell some funny stories along the way. Obviously, the health issues there is something that was really scary, but I mean, it's inspirational, and everything's okay now, Steve? I mean, I guess you get checked up every once in a while, or?
Yeah, in fact, later today I get some results on some scans I took last week. I'm still dealing with cancer. It was in 2 spots. But look, it was 5 years they gave me as a worst case scenario, and I'm at 6.5 now. So
great.
It's been great. I like to think, because I was chasing this dream, the cancer hasn't had time to grow. So, and that's been the nice thing about this is we've shared the book and, just the story with other people. People have been inspired to chase their own dreams that they were, kind of putting off or thinking they have more time to chase. So, it's been great sharing the story.
Dying to Do Letterman, Turning Someday into Today's the full title. We've been talking with Steve Mazan. And Steve, give out a website people can get a hold of the book or contact you.
Yeah, everyone can go to dyingtodoletterman.com, and we have links to go get the book, and you can also sign up for our mailing list. We have an award-winning documentary as well that's going to be coming out, so we'd love to share that with people. And people can, there's a link to my website as well, Steve Mazan, Mazan.com, but it has my calendar and everything. And both the, Dying to Do Letterman and me, myself, are on Facebook as well. And I don't have 5,000 friends yet, so this is how to get in. This is the ground floor.
I'd like to have you on again, Steve, when the documentary's out. It'd be great if...
I would love that. That'd be great.
Is that sometime next year you're looking at that?
Yeah, I think that's, we've been on a festival run, showing you different cities and having a great response from people. So I think, kind of wider release and definitely the video on demand where people can see it, that day. That'll be coming up soon, probably in the next month and a half.
Oh, great. Yeah, hang on the line after we're done. I got something I'll ask you about that, but we've been talking with Steve Mazan, and Steve, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate the time.